You know who the best parents have been in my whole time being a coach and like helping their like families through recruiting processes? The kids' dads who played in the big leagues. They are actually the lowest maintenance.
Yeah.
Okay, they don't make excuses. They don't speak for their kid. And here's the thing: they've never agreed, disagreed, or even had an opinion on what team their kid should be on.
Yeah.
But here I got real estate agents and food distributors and
Yeah.
like what every other occupation under the sun,
Yeah.
telling us having opinions on things, right? So here you are as a current big leaguer, as the guy that was the average player and all that stuff, and here it is, same thing we're telling them is like parents like you got to stay away. And the thing I'll finish on with this is to seem like we're coming at the parents, I'm going to draw back a little bit and
Yeah.
be on their side. They have the toughest position.
They have the toughest position. But here's what
No
I'll tell
doubt.
you. Here's what I'll tell you is my dad never played one sport growing up. He raced motorcycles and that kind of stuff, but he never like. I still don't think he's ever seen the inside of a weight room. I don't think he knows what it looks like. I swear. And there was a point in my life where like he would try to coach me up, and eventually we had to talk, and I'm like, "Yo, pops, I love you to death, but I got this." You know what I mean? And now he won't coach me up. He'll want to talk about ball. He's my dad. He loves.
Yeah.
He's my biggest fan in the world. You know what I mean? But I will tell you this. Sometimes he'll text me and he'll be like, "Hey, you looked a little off tonight," or like, "You looked like you were fast tonight." So he'll hit me with things sometimes where like it's not so much coaching me up or whatever. It's just like I've seen you pitch the
And
most.
he just knows you.
I've
right?
yeah, I've seen you pitch the most, and today you just look different. Like something was up.
so-
I don't know what it was, and there's been multiple times where he's told me that. Where now I start thinking about what happened that specific outing. I'm like, fuck, he was right. Like I was the game definitely split up on me tonight, and I was way too fast, or I wasn't controlling my breathing, or whatever it was. Like he pointed me in the direction just because he was using his eyes, not because he knew more.
And that's the so
You know what
that's
I
a
mean?
that's the best example you could have given because basically like your parent as parents, if you want to say something, it needs to be about as broad and as general
Yeah,
as
like you look
possible.
different.
Yeah, see exactly.
Something
right?
was up.
Yeah, but like that. But then your dad stops there. He
Yeah.
doesn't try to get it into the context of baseball. So you look at him and say, "Yo, he was right," but he understands he was right on a broad spectrum.
Yeah.
And then you know how to
I
get more
narrow it,
granular,
yeah.
right, with that, right? And that's where it's just like it's so hard for parents because every one of these parents are more invested than anyone in the process, including the player,
100%.
because they're invested in every form of investment, emotionally, financially, their time, everything, right? So they're as invested as anyone, if not more than everyone in the process, including the player, coach, whatever it might be, and they can do the least, right? So think about that, right? Like
No doubt.
if everything you have everything on the line, and then you're told to just kind of trust and sit on your hands and you maybe clap a little bit, and you're not allowed to do anything more.
Yeah.
That is unbelievably
No
hard.
doubt.
I can't
And-
imagine.
And not to mention like just I've been working. I don't even work with the kids. I hang out with them more than I work with them at practice.
Because that's your role.
Because that's my role.
Right, yeah.
I'm the player, right? So I told one of them yesterday. I said, "Dude, stop calling me sir. I'm not your coach. I'm a player. I still play. I'm your homie. Okay, I'm a player. I'm putting on cleats with you today. Once I start putting on shoes only, you can sir me. But right now, like I'm just trying to help you grow as a player because I'm a player too. We're all in this together. Even though we were separated by almost 20 years, it's the same, right? So, like when I go to this game today, I'm gonna be way more. These kids have no idea how nervous I get when they're in big situations. You know what I mean? Because I'm pulling for them so hard. So I can only imagine being a father.
You're more
or a
nervous
mother
there than when
I'm
you have
playing.
the ball
Exactly.
in the show.
Exactly. So being a parent, I'm sure is like I can't
Because at
even-
least you know what they feel like.
Yeah.
It's even more nerve wracking when you don't know.
Exactly. So I can only imagine the amount of emotions that a parent goes through during any kind of level of game, whether you're in
then-
T-ball or the big leagues.
And then they take into this information where we talk about that they don't know what to do
Yeah,
with.
exactly.
So they're in this emotional moment where they've got to grasp onto something to make sure because they feel like they're drowning,
Yeah.
right? And then they're just going to grasp onto whatever information they have, and sometimes that information just puts them deeper underwater,
100%.
right? More times than not, right? And then they're drowning, right? And then they're scrambling, and anybody who's scrambling, they don't ever be the best version of
Yeah,
themselves.
and
They
I-
don't
and I-
ever make sound decisions.
This just came to me right now, but I think that maybe potentially the best advice you could give to a parent is like this is what I tell pitchers that are young that come to the big leagues. At the end of the day, when you're in the game, you better bring your balls. Okay, like you better bring your nuts. You better put them on the table because it's go time. And I think as a parent, that's your coaching point. Like you know your kid more than anybody knows your kid. You spend the most time with them.
As a person.
As a person.
Right? Mm-hmm.
As a person. Maybe not so much as a player, but as a person. Like, did they come to compete today? And if they didn't, why? And if they did, potentially why? Because last time they didn't, maybe. You know? So like if you want to be super involved, I think potentially that's your moment. Like that's it. Like did they come to you're not always going to be the best, especially in baseball. Baseball is the hardest game in the world. You can do everything right and suck, and you can do everything wrong and be great on any given day.
You're supposed to struggle.
Yeah,
That's how it's
on any
designed.
given day. Like, and you can catch some bad luck and do everything right for a month and be the worst player for a month straight. And the guy right next to you could do everything wrong for that same month and be the best player for a month straight. How are you going to handle that? Well, you better bring your nuts tomorrow because we got another game.
And the best way to handle it is accepting that when struggles happen, when adversity happens, when failure happens, is understand it's supposed to happen.
It happens.
So if I understand that something is supposed to happen, then how am I going to get upset about it, right? It is what it is. I knew that it was supposed to happen.
100%.
So that's the piece, right? Parents, you got to understand. Players, you got to understand.
Yeah.
You're going to fail. They're going to fail. You can't hit the panic button. You can't hit 911. You have to go, oh, that's right. Well, that's supposed to
Nobody
happen.
gets 100 on a test.
That's supposed to
You're going to
happen.
miss a couple questions here and there and still get an A. It's the same.
It's supposed to happen.
100%.
So, yeah, man.
But I think just to close that part out as a parent, like you know your kid. Did he bring it today or did she bring it today? Did they bring it today or not? And if not, talk to them about it. Why not? What were you thinking about? What was going on? Why were you thinking about that? Like, get them asking themselves questions that a kid normally doesn't ask. Because when I have a bad one, that's literally what I do. Like, more times than not, if I have a bad outing, that night I'm going to sit there and, like, try to run through each pitch in my head. But most of the time, it comes back to the same thing. Where was my focus and where was my intensity level? And if both of those things are like A++, then it normally ends up being like bad luck. But if one of those things isn't there, that's normally the cause of what happened. Like I went 3-0 on a guy, or I walked him, or let's say that my intensity level was down. So like when I got into that big situation, I then like pitched scared, and now I'm 2-0 on the next guy and he hit a double or whatever it is. Like if you can control those two things and those are A++ every time, more often than not, you're going to be all right. So as a parent, helping them control those two things, their focus and their intensity levels, there's your coaching point. Leave the rest for the coaches because
and leave the rest for them.
Yeah,
right?
and
we got to figure it out.
And
as people.
those 2 points, like that's life too, right? Like where's your if you're working at Texaco today, where's your focus today? What are you working on? What are you focused on? Nothing. Well, it's probably gonna be a rough day for you then, probably. So it's all the same. But I'm not a parent. But if I was a parent, I feel like I'm everybody's uncle right now at the baseball field, and that's what I talk to them about the most. They can play. They have their coaches teaching them good stuff. Because they listened to me and because it took me a long time to learn those parts of the game, that's what I talk to these kids about the most. Like I just talked to Cannon yesterday. They were playing Bishop Moore, and one of their hitters kept calling time. And every time he kept calling time, the umpire gave it to him every single time. And Cannon never got off the rubber. Ready. Love that. But I just had an open conversation with him about, like, I love that you did that because that's like I'm ready to go, get back in the box, you MFer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like, he just took control of the game. Now we're on his time. No. You got the ball. Run your time. If you want to let's go him the first time, love that. But by the second or third time, all right.
And that's when
you get off the mound, you walk around, and you take your game back.
And that's the game, right? Because here's the thing, right? Like you look at it from a pitcher's perspective, and more of my career, once I got into college, especially, was more as a hitter, right? So like you tell the pitcher that that's your time, that's your ball.
And you're gonna
right?
tell the hitter that
I
that's
tell the
his
hitter, I
time.
say that's my box.
Exactly.
It's called the batter's box.
That's the game.
right? So that's it. So that's the thing, right?
the game.
As opposed to worrying about who's in the stands, who's tweeting about me,
Yeah.
who's watching this, who's what like that. Hey, you worry about that's my box.
Yeah.
And you will go on my time.
Yeah.
And you're standing on the rubber 60 feet 6 inches away saying,
No,
hey,
this is my time.
I'm the one with the ball.
Yeah.
It's my time.
Exactly.
Right? And that's why it's that one-on-one, the game within the game, that when you're underwater and you're just worrying about the game within the game, that's when you're going to get the most out of yourself. That's when the 100-mile exit velo is going to come. The adrenaline that you're going to get that says, you know what, this is my time, and you get in the box because I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
That's going to get you that extra mile an hour, right?
doubt.
That's going to get you to execute your pitch a little bit more, which is going to get you to perform more, man.
doubt.
That is what it is. The other stuff, like we talked about, is data that is a byproduct of, are you competing?
Yeah, it's
Flat
a tool. It's a tool to learn.
Yeah, man.
In
It's a
between.
measurement, man. It's all it is. It's the barometer. It's
But
a
when you're
temperature
out,
check.
I tell people all the time. This is one of my favorite analogies ever. I tell people all the time. All right, Mike Tyson, scariest boxer ever potentially.
Yeah.
When he gets in the ring, you can see it in his eyes that this guy is only worried about knocking that guy out. He's not worried about how he's gonna throw his right hook or how he's gonna move to the left and duck under something and maybe upper. Like, he's not worried about how. He's just worried about do. The only time he worries about how is leading up to the fight. That concept is lost in baseball a lot. And I would even venture to say lost more in like the American player. A lot of Latin players don't have that concept because they just play so much their whole life. Like, they don't have as much coaching, I would assume. So there's not as much like, get your arm up, make sure you get balanced. It's just like, no, here's the ball, get that guy out, and do that a lot, and you'll be fine. You know what I mean? So that concept is like everything, especially at the young age. I was just telling you this morning at breakfast, I was with a kid throwing a bullpen the other day. He threw a bad curveball, and in my head, I'm like, I wonder what he was thinking there. Hey, what were you thinking on that curveball? Oh, I was thinking scap retraction. I said, huh? How are you going to throw the ball where you're trying to throw it if the only thing you're thinking about is what your scap's
Head's
doing?
not underwater, man.
You know what I mean? Like, right now, I'm worried about where that ball is going. I was worried about scap retraction when I was long tossing.
Or when we were
When I
in
was
the weight
throwing weighted
room
balls
and like that.
or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly. Right?
That's when I'm worried about
because that's
scap.
the how.
Bingo. Now, when you're throwing a bullpen or when you're hitting in the cage, you're sparring, right? So, like, you can think a little bit about how,
More doing, less.
but you're competing.
Yeah.
Because if you're sparring and you're not competing, you could still get knocked out.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, that's when you're training your brain to focus so that when you're in game, your focus is on game. Right? So, like, we train our brain to focus on everything else when we're training. But when you're, like, hitting in the cage or you're on the mound, like, that's when you train your brain to focus. Whatever it's focusing on during those times is what it's going to focus on in game. You see what I'm saying? If I'm throwing a bullpen and I'm only focused on how I'm throwing in my bullpen, when I'm on the game mound, I'm only going to, like, my adjustments are only ever going to be how am I throwing this. It's never going to be F you or look at the glove or whatever, because I never trained my brain to do that. So you got to find times to train your brain to work on focus, because we don't work on focus enough. Does that make sense?
No, but it's because focus isn't sexy, right? You know what I'm saying?
Well,
but
focus is not. It's not talked about.
Because it's not sexy enough. Nobody wants. It's the boring stuff.
Yeah,
right?
like, what'd you feel there? Well, I felt like, I spun it well. I'm like, well, yeah, you sure
So
did.
what drill can I do for that?
Yeah, like, you sure did. You spun the shit out of that. But what were you focused on?
Yeah.
Spinning it because you did that.
Yeah. Was it well? This drill helped me.
Yeah.
That's the drill helped you, but that's not why.
Yeah, but that's
right?
not why.
That's not why.
Yeah.
Right, and why was it? Because you were convicted to it, right?
You were focused on whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
I think that all of that kind of continues for me. It always comes back to the same thing, where it's like intensity level, focus level, where they at. In a young age, nobody talks about it or teaches it. It's more about, like, are you spinning it? What's your exit velo? What's your launch angle? What, like, whatever. But, like, focus on the competition at hand
And
when it's at hand.
Because in today's world, that stuff's going to happen because once again, that's the temperature check, that's the
Mm-hmm.
barometer, right? And we have the accessibility to that stuff, which is all great. Then comes in the responsibility side. Go, oh, okay, I'm not trying to have the 2,800 RPM. How do I get that? When I am competing and I do this and I have this feel, the byproduct is that, and oh, that's great. But I'm worried about this piece. That just confirms for me what I did. It's not, oh, I did that. Now let me try and do that. No,
Right.
it's how did I get to a destination? It's because I understand the path, right, to get there. So if I want to get to that destination again, it's not teleport. It's not like, oh, let me just think about it and it happens. I got to take the same path to get there, right? So what you're saying, right? Like this stuff's going to be here, but don't be concerned about that.
Yeah.
What was it that got you that? And just keep your mind in there.
No
Is
doubt.
what it is.
If you for a pitcher, when I'm working with like a kid and I'm trying to get them to just focus on throwing the ball where they're trying to throw the ball, I'm like, yo, if you're at the fair and you got a clown in the dunk tank and you got to hit that little thing, are you worried about
Scap retraction.
scap retraction or how high your leg kick is or how quick you're going? No. You're focused so much
On the dot.
on that little
Dot.
thing because you want the clown to fall into the water. That's the same focus that you got to have. And, like, as long as you get the same result every time and it's a good result, like, there's your mechanics. Build off of that. Yeah. Nobody ever said to Hunter Pence, Hunter, that swing right there, man, that swing looks good. Stay right there. You know what I mean? But guess what? The guy is consistent, and he's one of the best hitters of all time probably because he's consistent, and I guarantee you that he was the most focuser of all time out there. You know, like, the amount of competitiveness and focus and intenseness that he brought to the table, the mechanics didn't matter. He was just hit. There's the ball. I'm going to put the barrel where the ball's going, and then I'm going to run really hard. And he was really good at that.
Yeah.
You know?
No doubt.
No computer probably said he was great, but he was really good.
Yeah.
Really good. I don't know how many times.
The computer probably says he's better than what you think. The eyes, the subjectiveness doesn't say that it's great. The computer and the data says he's really good because the computer and the data doesn't see how shiny the button is, right? You know what I'm saying? They don't see all that stuff.
For sure. So I don't know, man.
So let me wrap this up. Let's conclude. So going back to the whole purpose of this, there was two things we were trying to get across to everybody, right? Which is actually, if they look deep enough, everything we talked about, these two things were present and relevant, right? First off, the opportunities are always there. Every day we have opportunities. It's about how much do you want to find what the opportunities are, right? And how those opportunities can transfer into maybe the other opportunities that you want to have, right? And prepare you for that. And the other thing is play better, man, right? It doesn't matter. Like, you don't like where you're at, play better, you know? And I do want to make sure that people know that, like, look, I actually got that from you about 6 or 7 years ago, and it was a simple way. And I think it's important for people to know that, you know, like, at the end of the day, like, that was your thing with David Price.
Yeah, right? Well, for me, it started in the minor leagues when people would complain about, you know, the food or the whatever because the minor leagues is crazy. A guy named Mike Hessman, who I ended up actually playing with for a little bit at one point in my career. He was like a legend to us because he played in AAA for like 17 years, and he had the most homers ever in AAA. Right now, he's the homer king for AAA. And he never got a lot of chances in the big leagues. He's got a little bit of big league time, but not as much as you would think for the guy that's got the most homers in AAA.
Sure.
And he was old, and he was riding buses, and did it for 17 years, and everything that you could ever complain about in the minor leagues, like the group of guys that I was surrounded with coming up, I was blessed. And somebody would complain about something, like, you think Hessman's complaining about that, man? Play better. You don't like it, play better. You don't like eating that PB&J and soup, you better play better. Because in the show, they don't got that, you know? And so it started there, and then I played with David in Detroit, and he converted it to pitch better. Like, that, he had already had that thing. Like, for him, it was don't like it, pitch better. And I had came from the don't like it, play better, so I just morphed it into what he was saying because I looked up to him, obviously.
And that's just really your guys' thing
and
now, right?
And that was it.
Yeah.
And when it really hit home for me because, like, we used to say it, whatever, but I asked him to sign a jersey for me, and that's what he put on the jersey was.
And that's where, that's where for me, I first saw it because one of the off seasons,
Yeah.
we're hanging out, right? And I see that, and I see he's got like, it wasn't just David Price. And I
Yeah.
knew he was your boy. There was like a little, like almost a short book on
Yeah.
there on what he signed you in the shadow box, and it says "Play Better" real
Yeah.
big. I could see it from across your living room.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, what's the Play Better thing? And then once you said that, for me, it was just like kid in a candy store, considering that here I am working with amateur baseball, and I'm
Yeah.
like, this is the simplest, most concise form to get across to every one of these kids.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get across. Play better, man.
Yeah.
Just play better. Quit complaining about your high school coach.
And even
Like,
even it comes down, even if like you're down on yourself about whatever, you had a bad outing or you had a bad week.
hey man, play better.
You don't like how you feel right now?
Yeah.
Play better.
Play better.
It fixes everything.
Yeah, it does.
You
man.
know?
It's
So
everything.
and low key it gives you like a direction and another goal and
Yeah.
another plan. Like
It keeps you consistent. It keeps your
it
mind
keeps you
there.
going. For Jesse, it keeps him underwater. Like
Yeah.
it's all the same. We're all trying to reach the same thing. Like it's like a math problem for me in high school. I could never watch the teacher do it. I would always somehow figure out how to get to the answer myself, which is, I guess, the kind of person I am, turns out. But like we're all looking for the same answer. There's a lot of different ways to get there. Like figure out your way of getting there and then get really good at that.
Yep. So for me, it's if I have that mindset of play better, then I've got to find opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay. For me to be able to play better at something.
For sure.
Right.
And
so like
my other thing that I also got from DP was I used to say there's no such thing as good luck. It's only preparation meeting opportunity, right? And I told him that one time before one of his starts, and he's like, that makes sense, but sometimes you break a guy's bat and it's a single. Like that's bad luck. Like I'll take some good luck with me tonight. And I thought about that. I'm like, he's right, but like for me, the preparation meeting opportunity was just mental for me to feel prepared and ready to accomplish.
as you were my teammate in high school and worried about if I pitched bad, it was your fault because the race
Yeah.
went down. So there was one year when you first got called up and you were still starting, and I like hit you up with like I would text you the morning of your start and like you threw well. So like I
Yeah.
did that for a handful of outings later, right? So then all of a sudden one day I hit you up, right? Because I was trying to be, if I don't do this, I can't
Yeah.
pitch well, right? All
Yeah.
that, and I hit you up and I said good luck, and when that day you're like, hey, don't tell me good luck anymore. There ain't no luck. And you said exactly
Yeah,
that, right?
preparation
And
meeting
I said, well, what do you want me to tell you then? Because for me, I'm like, yo, I got to do this still.
Yeah.
Like, you're pitching well, right? I got to do this. You said, just go get them.
Yeah.
So then from there, it was just like, okay, man, like that's what you want. You don't want to go good luck. Like I'm doing my part. I think
Yeah.
I'm helping because I'm hitting you up and you're performing well. It was
Yeah.
in 2019 when you were, not 2019, it was when you were starting, right? But it was, so it's like, okay, so what is it then? Right?
Yeah.
Oh, go get them. So then from there on out, like every single time I hit you up, I just say go get them from that point
it.
because that's all it was.
And that's how for me, like that's how I felt prepared. Was preparation meeting opportunity. At the end of the day, feeling like you're the most prepared person in the stadium is the goal. Accomplishing that feeling is going to be different for everyone. Like some guys might take 20 swings in the cage and say, yeah, I'm ready to go. And then another guy might have to take 200 swings to get to that same feeling of I'm ready to go. Let's go, right? You know what I mean? So, like I said, it's same goal, but everybody's way of getting there is going to be a little bit different.
For sure, man. Well, I appreciate it, man. Obviously, this has just been kind of us for the last 15, 20 years, right, and all that. And this is what I always said I wanted to do is be able to hear our conversations because this is the real stuff, right? You know what I'm saying? This is the unedited. This is the real stuff, and I think what people think is so impactful is when somebody is they want to be famous, right? And that's where I think all these kids are trying to be travel ball famous. And your story is more impactful because you weren't the All-American, right? You weren't all those things, but you're still playing and I'm not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, right?
Sure.
And it's like I think that's why that's even more powerful because at the end of the day, like what you're doing today always matters and performance matters, but that doesn't mean anything for the next day. And it definitely doesn't mean anything for your longevity until you bring it every single day. So to hear somebody that didn't start at the top and just stay at the top because you got to hit cruise control and it just kind of happened, it was earned through this. Like you said, more people are you. More people are the guy that had enough and had to find a way. There's a few people that just come out of the womb and that doesn't matter what they do.
Course.
They're in the league, right? But we know of all kinds of stories of being in this game of people that were, hey, this guy should be in the league, and he found a way to screw it up, right? You know what I'm saying? So like,
think about how many people in the world are as good at basketball as LeBron James, but made decisions along the way and didn't be LeBron
And
James.
they're not LeBron James.
You know what I mean?
And that's why we're talking about LeBron. I
Yeah.
mean, talking about
Whoever.
whatever, insert any other name.
100%.
So yeah, no, like I said, man, this stuff is great, man. I appreciate you. You know, I know we kind of went into a lot of things just because, hey, man, I don't know when's the
And
next
once I
time
get
you're gonna be around.
no,
you
and
know?
once I get going, I'm going. You know.
Yeah, no.
I could do this all day.
No, but I appreciate that, man, because a lot of people are, you know, try to be, you know, they sometimes they edit themselves, right? And
Yeah,
that's
for
something
sure.
that's always been about you. Is you never really edited yourself, and whether people liked it or not, right? You know, it was real, and that's
If
why
what
there's
I
respect.
say helps one person, then
It's worth
I
pissing
left.
off. It's worth pissing
Well,
off people, right?
yeah. At the end of the day, all right. This is it. This is my last story. One time I was on an airplane and one of my teammates, Jacoby Jones, he's a adrenaline junkie, and he's talking to me about skydiving. And we're on the team plane in Detroit, and I'm looking out the window, and it says, you know, like on the computer, it tells us how high we are. And Jacoby's like, hey, I've jumped out of a plane this high. And I'm like, what? And I open up the window, and I'm looking out the window, and I'm looking down there, and I'm like, no way, dog. No way I'm jumping out of a plane from up here. And he's like, yeah, you got to do it with me. And I'm like, all right, for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to just look out this window and picture myself jumping out of a plane this high. And I started sweating. My heart rate went through the roof. I'm like, it can't, not going to happen, brother. Can't do it. And he made me make a pact with him on my 72nd birthday. We're going to go skydiving together. Okay. But I tell that story because after we made that pact, I continued to look out the window and think about myself jumping out of the plane. Okay. And why am I so scared of skydiving? Well, because of death. Okay. So now my brain's just, my heart rate's through the roof. My blood's pumping. I'm sweating. And now I'm thinking about the craziest thoughts of all time. Right. So I tell that to say, like, during that flight, it changed my life because I'm like, all right, if this plane goes down right now, like, then what? Like, how will I be remembered? What did I do while I was here? You know, like, who did I impact? All right. So now for the rest of my life, like, I'm going to try to impact every person I come across in a positive way, what I believe is a positive way, whether they believe it or not, so that if one day I go, when I go, like, that's really when you impact the most people. You know what I mean? Like, Kobe was very influential, but the day that he went down on the helicopter, he impacted the entire world because the world started talking about what he was about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, then the Mamba mentality became worldwide because he created that. So, like, that is why I'm here. Because if it helps one person when I go, then I left the world, in my opinion, a better place than it was when I got here because I helped one other person understand what's going on.
I just hope that everybody lets this be as impactful while you are still here, and it doesn't take it going
Yeah,
down
for
this
sure.
to have the maximum impact that it could have.
For sure,
right?
but that's how I got to where I'm
Yeah.
at. Where, like, I'm gonna tell you what I think and how I got to my thoughts, and you might disagree with me, but you can't disagree with my journey because it was my journey.
Yeah, no, for
You
sure.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I appreciate it.
No.
Can't wait till the next one,
I
dog.
appreciate you, man. So.